Alright, so in this tutorial here, I'm just going to show you how to make a slider or a carousel, slideshow, you know, that it looks like this. So just as a reminder, this is the HTML code, then here I have the CSS code, and then here is the JavaScript code, and then on the left is basically an explanation of what each one of these things are, like how it's, you know, sort of a, almost like if each line was commented, that's what I put on the left. Okay, so hopefully that helps you understand it in some way. But also on the bottom here, you can click on this and you can kind of see, oh, I forgot I had to save it. Okay, so you can download it and then you can see it, and it looks like, I don't know, time to run on Windows, whatever. Okay, we get it. Alright, let's close that out. I'm not sure what's going on there. Still recording, so we're just going to go with it. I can click on this, and then basically, let me get this guy out of the way here. You can click next, 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 so on and so forth, and it has these little buttons. Okay, so you know, this sort of thing is basically what we're making. That's really annoying. Will that not go away? I'm just going to put it over here. All right. So that's what we're going to be making. Yeah. All right. So what I need to do first, because this is actually going to have to use images that are imported into it, so I'm going to have to minimize this, and then we will come on, new folder, and we'll just call this slider example. All right. And then inside of that folder, I'm going to need new folder. We'll do an images folder, and then usually we do a CSS and JavaScript folder. I'm not going to worry about that. I'm just going to have this images folder, and I am just going to borrow from this one the images so that I at least have some big pictures. Okay, Control C, and I'm just going to paste them in here. Control V or Command C, Command V. All right, so I'm going to save my file right into this, right next to my images folder. Right, so we have a nice clean one here. I'm going to go ahead and save this. Control Shift S or File Save As or Command Shift S. We're going to say the desktop, and then it's going to be slider, oh, not that one, slider example, and then I'm just going to call this, we'll just call it index.html. Alright, boom, and then we just have to do the typical, you know, doc type HTML, and then HTML, right, and then we got to do a head, and we got to do a body, okay, and then inside of the head we need to do a meta, so we're going to do the meta. I'm just going to copy it instead of writing it all out. Control C, but it's this thing here, Control V. So the meta name viewport content width equals device width initial scale. This thing allows it to be responsive. All right, so we need to put that in there, and then let's go ahead and do our body here. Okay, so I'm going to do a couple of things. Easy. Living good life. All right, so we're going to make a div that's just going to hold our entire slideshow. So we'll do div class, and I will call it slide show. And basically the whole slideshow will fit inside of this div. Okay, and then inside of that we're going to have a div class, and that's going to hold a slide. Okay, so this will be my slide, and then inside of each slide we're going to have our things we want in it. So one obviously is going to be the image, so image src, and the source is images / and it's going to be, you got to look at your file path, so mine's this 1.png. And then I'm going to go ahead and do a class on this and just call it slide img. Okay, so that way I can grab this image specifically and format it. This will allow me to grab each slide specifically, and this will allow me to grab the whole slideshow. That's the idea anyway. All right, and then I'm also going to go ahead and add another div in here for class, and we're going to call it Caption. So if you want to have text underneath, that's what will exist inside of this one, and then we'll just do an h3. And I'll just say slide 01, and then P, and we'll just say slide licious. Okay. All right, and basically, oops, not like that. basically each slide is going to look like this. So I'm just going to take this guy here and just copy and paste it. So however many slides you have, that's how many of these you will be making. Okay, so we're going to back that thing up, and I'm going to grab all of these and Shift Tab. Okay, so boom, boom, boom. Oops, this has also got a Shift Tab, and this one also Shift Tab. Just want to make sure everything's on the, you know, the nice and narrow here. Okay, good. So I got my slideshow, right? And then I got each slide, and inside the slide I got my images, I got a caption, so on and so forth. Looking pretty good. Now the last thing I need, if you remember looking at the bottom of that, is I need to actually put in my like the little slide indicator thing. So what we're gonna do is inside of so outside of the last slide, I'm just gonna go ahead and do a div ID, and we're just gonna call it slide indicator. Okay. Let me just, you know, we'll leave a space there. It's fine. Okay. Slide indicator, and then on the, oh, I'm sorry. Actually, we also have our we also have to have our next and previous buttons. So let's go ahead and do that too. Forgot about that one. Let's do that next. So that is just going to be, they're just going to float out on their own there. So we're just going to do an A class, and we're just going to call it previous. So this will be our previous button, and then we'll do on click. Oops, not like that. On click, I'm going to have them run a function called next slide. Next slide. Okay. Boom, and -1. So basically what it's going to do is it's going to call next slide, but it's going to give it -1, which makes it going to go to the previous thing. And you'll see when we do the other slide, it won't be that way. And then this just, yeah, we get it. All right. This is just going to be a previous, like the chevron is what they call it. It's just a symbol. It's an escape character. Actually, you know what we're going to do? Let's just do, call it this. See, I don't know. I think it'll read that. Yeah. So that'll be our previous button. And then I'm just going to copy this. Control C, Control V, and this one will be called, oops, next. And it's going to send it a value of 1. Okay. So sort of similar. Each one is. All right. And then now let's do the slide indicator thing. Okay, so these are going to be the dots that we have in there. So the dots are going to be a span class, and we're going to call it dot. All right, and then we're going to go ahead and do an on click, because if you look, sorry, camel case is sort of a habit now. Current slide, and it's going to send it 1. Boom, and boom. Okay. So basically what this is going to do is it's going to be a little bit of a, it's going to be a dot on each one of them, and it's going to, when you click on that dot, it brings you that specific slide. So instead of doing next slide, this one's going to go to that specific slide. And so it's going to send it to slide 1, slide 2. Oops, let's do another one here. Control V, or slide 3. Okay. So you, for however many slides you have up here, you're going to have to do that many dots down here. So 1 for each as you have up there. All right, and let's save that. This probably isn't going to look like much. Let's go ahead and see what we have. Yeah, it's great. Oh, you know what? I didn't change those slides. So this one should be photo. I think I had 3, or no, yeah, 3 and then 5. 3 and 5. And I'm just going to go ahead and change the numbers to slide 2 and slide 3. Okay, that way I can tell the slide's working. Okay, great. All right, so let's go ahead and format some stuff here. And then, so we have the basic slideshow kind of laid out. So that should work okay. But now I need to add some stylishness. Okay, so we're going to do style. All right, and I'm going to go ahead and do one of these. So if you remember, the asterisk applies to all. So we're just going to do that box sizing thing just to make sure that everything fits inside of our border box. And then I'm going to do body. Okay, and we're going to go ahead and do font family, and I like to do this one. Okay, and that's just going to set the default stuff there. Now I'm going to do something for my slides. So remember we have a slide class, and we're going to do is just turn them off by default. Okay, so we're going to do display, and we're going to do none. Okay, because we're going to use the JavaScript to actually turn on each slide for us. So I want the slides to be off. Now what I want to do is format the actual slide images, slide img. Okay, and we're going to do vertical align, and we're just going to go ahead and do middle. Okay, it's just so that it's they're all the same up and down. And then the width, I want it to be 100%, right? I want it to be across the whole thing. So glorious. Okay, so slide image. All right, so now let's do something for the slideshow. Slide, yeah, that's right. Oh no, it's not slideshow. Okay, and we're gonna go ahead and do max width, and we're gonna do 100 or 1000 px. Basically means that it cannot go beyond a certain size, and since this is 100%, it'll have to fit inside of this. So it's 100% of what this is. All right, then we'll do position. We'll do relative, so that it goes in normal flow, and then margin, I'm just going to do auto, which means it'll try to center. Okay, the slideshow should be in the center of the screen, so it should have equal on both left and right. Now we're going to do it. Go ahead and do our previous and next buttons. I'm going to format those. Okay, so cursor, and we're going to do pointer. That just makes it so when I hover over it, it will turn into like the little finger that makes it look like so you can click on it. Position, and we want to do absolute because we don't want it to float around on us. And we're going to go from the top, and we're going to go 50%. Okay, so that just makes it halfway to the top. So it's going to say 50% where the browser window is. It's going to go right in about halfway. The width, we're going to go ahead and just do auto. Padding, Paddington Bear, we'll do 16 pixels. Margin top, and we'll do -22 pixels. All right, color, I'm just going to go ahead and do white, just easier. Font hyphen weight. And I don't know, we'll do like 800, we'll say. You could also just do bold. Font size, let's do 20. Let's do 36 because I end up using those other things. So 36 px. And transition. Where's transition? Just want right. Oh, there's transition. And we are going to do 0.6 seconds. And ease. Okay, so that is good. Border radius, border hyphen radius, and let's just do 0, 3 px, 3 px, and 0. Okay, I don't understand what happened here. 3 px. Okay. Yeah, let's put px on these two. You actually don't have to because 0%, 0 em, and 0 3 px are all the same thing. And then user select none. Okay. God bless it. Pushed over. Okay. Boom. And then we'll just go ahead and we're going to do one just for next. And we're going to use this one just so that it actually goes to the right. So we're going to say right, and we're going to say 0 px. And we're going to change the border radius. Border hyphen radius. And let's go ahead and we'll do kind of the opposite of the other one. 3px, 0 px, 0 px, 3 px. Good. Boom, boom, boom. Now we need to do a hover on these. No, it's like a lot of stuff, sorry. So we'll do dot previous hover and also dot next hover. Okay. And where are you at? Okay, and we're just gonna do the background color hyphen color, and I'm just gonna do black for right now. You obviously should be probably a little bit more particular about your colors. I'm just trying to do it as quickly as possible. Okay, so that's the hover. Now we need to format the caption. Okay, so we'll do color, and I'm just gonna go ahead and do white, and font size, let's do 24 px. And then padding, let's just do 10 px, and bottom, so that way it'll stick towards the bottom. Let's just do 10 px for that as well. And then width, I want to span the entirety of it, so 100%. And then text align, we want to center it. Okay, boom. Almost there, yeah, 2 more. Alright, and then we need to format the dots. So dot, and we're going to do the same thing as before with that cursor thing, pointer. And then height, and we'll say 16 px, not pdx, px. And width, we'll also say 16 px. And then margin, we'll do 0 px, and then 2 px. And then background color, and we'll just do light gray. And border radius, border hyphen radius, and we're going to do 50%, so that way it'll make it a circle. That's the idea behind it anyway. And then we'll do display. Oops, I forgot to put this semicolon. Display, none. Or I'm sorry, not none. Inline block, and transition, and background hyphen, can't spell apparently. Background color, and 0.6 seconds, and ease. Alright. Oops, not that. There we go. Okay. Oh, oops, we already got one. And one last one, and this is my active. So we'll do active, and also dot, the dot hover. Okay. And we're just gonna do background, hyphen color, and I'm just gonna do dark. I don't know if this is gonna look good. Dark gray. Probably won't. We'll just go with it. Okay, so now everything's formatted, and it took forever. Let's go ahead and save that. Let's refresh it here to make sure. It should look like nothing. Yeah. I got my dots. That's about it. And then you can see there's one of the buttons, and where's the other one? I don't know. Maybe down. Yeah, somewhere. But anyhow, so hopefully that will be okay. All right. So, yeah, if it's not, we'll come back to it. All right, so now let's do the actual JavaScript, which is going to be lots and lots of fun. So we're going to do it right after the end of the slide there. So remember, you got to write script. Okay, and first thing we're going to do is go ahead and get some variables. So we're going to do variable slide num, so the slide number, and we'll set that to 1 initially. And then we're going to do is automatically tell it to show slide, because the first thing I want to do is actually have a slide, because right now it shows nothing. So we're going to make a function called show slide, and it's going to the slide I want it to show is going to be the slide number, right? Okay, now we need to make that function. So I'm going to go ahead and make the function down here. Okay, so we're going to need some space because I'm going to put some other stuff in there. So we're going to do function called show slide, and it's going to take n for the number slide. That's just the variable name, doesn't really matter what that is. and it's going to run everything that's inside of this bit of code here. All right, so first thing I'm going to do is variable I. Always need my counter. Not always, but if I'm using a for loop or something, I will. We're going to do a variable called slides, and basically we're going to store all of our slides in there. So document dot get get elements by class name, and the class name we want is slide. Okay. Yep, good. All right. And then we're also going to go ahead and store our dots in here. So var dots, and it's going to be the same thing. Document dot get elements by class name, and it's going to be dot. It's going to store all the dots in there. Great. Now we're going to do some conditions here. So let's do another one. If n is greater than the slides, let me see, did I do plural? Yeah, slides dot length. So if it's greater than the total number, go ahead and set the slide num to 1. Okay, oops, like that. Now, and close it. Okay, so the, oops, I already had it closed. So basically what it's going to say is that if the slides, right, it's going to take all the slides in here. So right now I have 3 slides. So it's going to say 3. So it's going to make the slides length here, the slides is going to be 0, 1, 2, 0, 1, and 2. So it's going to be, the length is going to be 2, right? But what we're saying is we're going to start at 1, and it's going to say if that number is greater than the total number, it's going to set it back to the beginning again. That's the idea. So that, like, when you get to the last slide, if you click next, it'll go to the previous one. Makes sense? That's why that's there. All right. Now we're going to do another test, and we're going to say if split space. It looks weird with that space. Let's take the space out. If n is less than 1, you probably see where this is going, then slide num is going to be equal to the slide dot length. Okay, and this is basically doing the opposite. So let's say I start at slide number 3, and I don't have 3. I slide number 2, and I go 2, 1, 0, and it's less than this total. And it's less than 1, right? So I go to the beginning. It's going to go ahead and put the number at the last slide. So if I go backwards in the previous button, I get to the first slide, it'll go to the last slide. So basically, these just kind of cover me whether you go past or before the total number of slides. Now we're going to do is set up the actual. Man, I got to test that before I actually tell it to show the slide, because otherwise, it, you know, if I show the slide and then look for it, it'll be all messed up. So we'll do a for, and we're going to set I to equal to 0, all right, because we're going to start a counter at 0, because even though we're using 1s and stuff up here, I is less than slides dot length and I plus plus. Okay, so basically we're going to run through every one of the slides so we get through them all, and we're going to say slides boom I. Okay, so the current slide in the loop that we're going through, dot style dot display, set it equal to none. So we want to make them invisibles. Okay. So basically, initially, I just want to turn them all off, because I'm not going to know which one I have currently on. So just turn them all off to start, and then we'll turn on the one we want specifically. Okay. Which is what this next bit of code is going to do. So we're going to do for I 0, again setting I starting at 0, and then I, and again we're just going to kind of do the same thing. Let me see, dots dot length, and then add 1 each time. Okay, and then run this code. So we got to do the same thing for the dots as well. Sorry, I was thinking we were doing the next part. We're actually doing, I forgot how to do the dots too. So dots, dots, I, dot style dot class name. Dot class name is going to be equal to dots I dot class name dot replace space active space doink doink, and like that. Okay, good. Did I put the wrong one in there? Okay. So this is going to just reset all the dots, basically. But in order to do the dots, they're actually controlled by the coloring, not by the other stuff. So what this is going to do is it's just basically, because they're not on and off. Like the slides themselves, I'm either showing them or not showing them. In this one, what I want to do is I just want to change the formatting. So what I did is I just took the class name, so meaning whatever class is associated with it right now. What I want to do is replace it, replace with this here. Okay. That should be good. Okay, and now we're actually going to run the actual bit that's going to tell it to, we'll do another enter, to actually run. So we're going to do slides, and then slide num -1 dot style dot display equals block. Oops, got to put in quotes. Slide looked weird to me. Okay, so basically we're saying here, yeah. So here we're saying it says slides and then slide num. So the number that we have. Now, you remember if we started it at 1, and obviously it's going to change that num every time. But I need -1. So like if we start at 1, it's actually in the index. If you remember, it's going to store them as 0, 1, 2, 3. Slide 1 is actually 0, and slide 2 is actually 1, and slide 3 is actually 2. So it's that -1. So that's the idea behind it. Let's do this to make it a little bit easier to see. So it's going to turn that one on. So first we turn them all off, and then we're only turning the one that we actually want on. And then we're going to do kind of the same thing with the dots here. Dots, slide num -1, again, because it's got to be consistent with everything else. Dot class name plus equals, so we're adding to it, and I did that backwards, plus equals, and we're going to add the active to it, okay? Boop, like that. And that will somewhat work, but that's not going to do everything. I'm going to go ahead and save that. I also need to add a couple other functions that will change the slide num. Because if you look right now, slide num is 1. There's nothing to tell it to be anything other than 1, right? And if you look up here, we have next slide. That's not what I have. This function is going to run this one every time, which is great. But there's nothing to tell this number to be different. So what we need to do is we need to basically, and also for the clicking, it's looking for current slide. So it tells it to go that specific slide. So we need a way to change the slide number. And so to do that, I'm just going to go ahead and do some functions for that. So we're going to do function next slide, which happens when we click on previous or next. It's going to run this function. And I'm going to store what it puts in. So remember, it's going to send it a -1 or a 1. If it's previous, it's going to go -1. So it's going to say send function next slide, that. And then what I want you to do with it is run again that show slide function. That show slide function, but you're going to send it slide num plus equals n. So basically, what I want it to do is add onto the current slide number, right, what was sent to it. So if it's a -1, if the current slide is, let's say, 2, it's going to add the -1, which will make it 1, and then it will go ahead and show slide 1, right? If it's this one, if I click on the next one and it sends it a 1, if it was 1, it will become 2. And then this will run frame or slide 2. That's the idea. And then we're going to do another one for the dots. It's kind of the same thing, but slightly different. Same basic concept, except we don't have to add to it. We just make it. So we do function current slide, and that's going to take n again. All right, so and then we'll do show slide, and you're just going to do slide num will be equal to n. Okay. So where this one's going to add to or subtract from, because we're going to the next one or previous, this one's just going to make it equal to that. Now, if you remember, when we're up here and it runs that function, it's going to send it 1, 2, or 3. So what's going to happen is it's going to run this function. It's going to send it that. That's going to replace n, whatever number's in here. And then it's going to run show slide, which is also going to take in the n from this guy. But it's going to send it. It's just going to say that it's that number instead of like adding or subtracting. It's like it just becomes 1, 2, or 3. And that's actually what's sent here. All right, so we'll save that, and we will minimize, and we will refresh. And some of my formatting looks kind of junky. Oh, I did them both the same direction. But you can see when I click, it goes like that. Right, looks pretty good. And when I click on these, they go to the specific ones. But you can see my CSS isn't great. I got to fix that. You know, simple things like just doing the where's the, like this one, let me see, previous, next. Let's do that at least. Oops, not you. Where are you at? There you are. Let's Control R. At least now it's the same direction, okay? But I would probably try to fix some of this formatting, like make sure this is centered. Something got funky in there. But you can see it more or less works, so yay, happy birthday to me. Okay. All right. So hopefully that made some sense. I know it was a long video, but that's why it's a little bit more complicated than the previous one. All right, so good luck.